Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fireside 42. This is Rob Walden. I am live and in person at the bargaining update meeting, and I have a special guest for you today. It is Chuck Browning. Mr. Vice President Chuck Browning, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Robert. How are you, brother?
I'm tired, but I'm here. I'm excited.
Good.
So, we're doing an update meeting.
Yes, sir.
I don't really know what my first question should be. So, the idea of this podcast, of this interview, and I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I asked our listening audience to submit some questions.
Great.
And I got some really good questions, and some of them were fairly pointed questions.
Good.
So I was wondering if you'd mind answering these questions for us.
I would love answering those questions. Great opportunity to connect with our members.
Yeah, and I think some of what you talked about today and what you're going to talk about later today will encompass a lot of what people are asking. So I think we can kill two birds with one stone here. So
Right.
The first question is not actually a question, but a statement, but I think it's a relevant one. And it is, and I'm not going to mention anybody's names here in case you don't want to be called out, but the question or the statement is, don't know what to think or who to believe.
Yeah, I understand that. It's very difficult for our members to determine what's being communicated to them, if there's honesty behind that communication, and I get it. Mm-hmm. What we work on constantly is being very honest and very open to the membership when we report out on the bargaining. And, what I would ask the members to think about is, what does each side have to be gained or have to be lost telling the truth? The way the bargaining process works is the union, the UAW in this instance, collects all of the demands and all of the desires of the members when we start the negotiations. And our job is to communicate what those concerns are from our members, to give examples. In many instances, we've gone back and talked to people that signed the data they turned into us last year and what they would like to see addressed in the contract, understand what their concerns are, and present those concerns to the company. We have been very open about what our counter proposals have been. These meetings that we hold, I encourage everybody, if there's any possible way to attend even one of these meetings. We go through with all the attendees here what the company's proposal was to us and what we've proposed to the company. And again, we have nothing to gain being dishonest with the members by what we're doing or how we're going about our business in bargaining. Because at the end of the day, it's going to result in negotiated language that we're going to agree to come to a tentative agreement, and they're going to vote on it. Mm-hmm. So from our perspective, there's no reason for us to be dishonest at all, and there's a check and balance system that exists for us because the product of our work is going to come to the membership and get voted on. On the company side, there's a lot to be gained being dishonest with the membership if they choose to do that. And unfortunately, there's been many instances through the course of negotiations where the company's chosen to do that, because what their goal is to reach a tentative agreement with us that falls short of what our members' demands are. So if they can convince the members that, hey, we're trying really hard, we're doing the best we can, we have limited resources, their whole goal is to settle short of what the members are trying to get, because obviously they reap a benefit financially, and they've had a good run of 15 years here paying people a lot less than what the standard is, the union standard in the United States. So, the more engaged the members are, the more they can be available for meetings, come up to the academy and talk to the bargainers. They'll find out very quickly, and it'll make a lot of sense to them who's being honest and and who isn't. One of the reasons, when you asked if I'd be willing to do a podcast, is this is another avenue where I can explain these things. So I get the dilemma being a member, and especially if you're a member that's never belonged to a union, never been through the bargaining process. That's a legitimate concern, and we're trying to do everything we can possible to prove our integrity, put ourselves in a position to where it's very clear to people who's being truthful and who's not. And I get it, and that's my answer. Try and stay as engaged as you can, and we're going to continue to try and come up with different avenues to reach out to people that aren't able to come here. People got a life to live too. There's people that have children in daycare. They can't come after work.
Yeah,
so
it's really important to try to meet people where they are.
that's right. That's right.
Next question. Why have we not given Volkswagen a deadline to make a reasonable offer? Why are we continuing to let this drag out?
So deadlines are normally automatically set by the expiration of a contract. In a first agreement, there is no expiration of the contract. So there's not a drop dead date per se for the parties to try and reach an agreement. Now, when we started the negotiations, I felt it was very feasible to get this agreement done by the end of the year. That was a very aggressive statement, but we set this deadline, myself and the bargaining committee, when I say we, to the company, that we want to get this done by the end of the year. The company bargained pretty hard from September till Christmas. And it was effective setting that deadline. After Christmas, we've set other goals, other deadlines to try and get this done. And unfortunately, two people are bargaining that agreement. I can assure everybody the bargaining committee's here every day. I can assure everybody the bargaining committee stays as late as it takes for any meetings with the company we have scheduled for the day. I can assure everybody that we are always available to bargain. And a lot of the bargaining that we've had since the first of the year has really been pushed by the UAW and initiated by us. The hard part about the first agreement is there's no natural deadline. There's going to be a point in time to where, as we get closer, and we're getting fairly close now, don't get me wrong, we're far apart on some of the issues, but we're down to about 20 issues. And you were here, Robert, when I presented that to the group today. We get these issues narrowed down a little bit more, it'll be reasonable for us to set a deadline. And part of that deadline is going to have to involve the potential of us taking action, be it a strike vote, be it some other form of escalation. But unfortunately, in a first agreement, the expiration of the deadline the expiration of the agreement doesn't exist to set a deadline.
Right.
But we can set deadlines based on other actions we potentially are going to take. And, we're towards the end of bargaining, and we'll see how that plays out and what we ask the membership to do to support us.
Okay, well, that leads perfectly into the next question. When will we get the opportunity to vote on a strike? It seems like the other UAW members got their contract after a strike. So after 14 months, why have we not had the opportunity for the vote?
Yeah, and that's a good question as well. The strike authorization vote has to be approved by 2/3 of the members. As this is one part of the Constitution that really falls on my shoulders. I have to be the one to request authorization for the strike, to take even the strike vote of the president. That's not a problem for me to do. My last 4 contract negotiations, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it's not our goal to strike any particular company. We just want to get a fair agreement. Unfortunately, 3 of the last 4 negotiations I was in resulted in strike action being taken. The John Deere agreement, we were on strike for 6 weeks. The Case New Holland agreement, we were on strike for 10 months. Tough strike. The members stuck with us. We ended up achieving our bargaining goals, but 10 months. The Ford agreement, we were out for almost 7 weeks. I had one in between there with Caterpillar. We were able to get through that without a strike. So the strike is a tool to create leverage and to set a deadline, like we were talking about, to get a fair agreement. We are still making some progress, not having taken a strike vote at this juncture, and we should continue down that path. Again, the goal is not to strike the company, but obviously I have my record is that I've had to do that throughout the last 4 times. So I'm not hesitant by any means on utilizing that as a tool, but it should be used strategically and smartly, and it should be used in a way that will bring this to an end to get a fair agreement, not just haphazardly calling a strike. If you call the strike at the wrong time strategically, I'm going to put our members in a position where they're going to be out there a great length of time. So, without going into too much detail, and believe me, the company has tried us as a bargaining committee on many occasions. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, it's a serious action to take. Obviously, our members do get strike pay, $500 a week. They do get their health care covered, which is huge here, without paying for it.
Can I get you back up for just a minute?
Yeah.
Because I've seen people post this, and I want you to reiterate it.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that we don't have a contract,
Yes.
if we go on strike, the UAW will pay everybody on the picket line strike pay.
Absolutely.
That's
And
a true statement.
that's a true statement, and the International Executive Board has already taken board action to authorize that.
Okay.
So that's been done previously. So it's not off the board. It's my hopes we don't have to utilize strike action. It's my hopes the company will sincerely sit down with us and address our few remaining issues. But if they don't, that will be something we'll educate the membership on. We'll take a vote. And once we take that vote, if the company doesn't come to an agreement with us that's satisfactory in ample time, we will set a deadline and we take strike action. I've done that at 3 other locations. Again, a little easier at the other 3 locations because that wasn't their first agreement, and they had a contract expiration for us to set a natural deadline. But it could be coming. And from my perspective, I just got to be strategic with it and utilize it responsibly.
Well, and so to be clear, the last 3 times you went on strike, you succeeded, yeah? So
I did.
You clearly know what you're doing.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is an interesting question. Christina likes to bypass the bargaining committee and post her offers to the membership.
Yes.
We've talked about that. You talked about that a little bit today.
I did.
So this question is, why do we never see counter offers the UAW sends back? And there's a follow-up, why are they still asking for 27% raise?
Yeah, so first of all, our most recent demand to the company is 25%. I've been very transparent with the company since the beginning of negotiations and with the membership. I talk about it at every meeting. Every meeting we have, I talk about what the company's last proposal was and what our last proposal, counter proposal has been. Obviously, when we hold the meetings, either we're in the process of answering them or they're in the process of answering us, but we communicate all of that at these meetings. It's been suggested, and I think it's a good suggestion, that we utilize some literature as well. The communications the company makes, and I talked about this a lot today without getting into huge detail, but the company on every occasion has exaggerated and over sensationalized what's been presented to us in the contract proposal.
Yes, last one was a doozy.
Yeah. And what we do is try and reiterate what the actual contractual language is And we let the members make their own decision. Yeah, I'm a seasoned bargainer. I bargained my first contract in 1993. Been doing this for a long time, but you don't have to be a seasoned bargainer to see what a proposal is and then look at how the company's representing that proposal and to be able to determine for yourselves the language isn't matching the message. And the company's actually, in my opinion, been very unwise on several occasions by over sensationalizing and creating an expectation with the members on what they actually propose, where we've been able to leverage them based on their direct communication to make what they said they proposed come true in some instances. But there's been other instances, one very recently in Detroit last week, where the company has tried taking vague proposals to us, tell us they mean one thing, and then as the negotiations go on, change their interpretation, never change the language of their proposal. And that happened in Detroit last week. And, it created an abrupt ending to the meeting. And I invited them to leave Solidarity House. I'll put it at that. I'm a little more graphic in the live meetings, but
you are definitely entertaining in live meetings. It's a good story. If you guys ever have the opportunity to talk to Chuck, ask him about Solidarity House. Now, I've seen it. They did post it a few times in their earlier offers, but this next question is, why does the company keep leaving healthcare out of their offer, and why does it oddly sound like previous officers just reworded?
Yeah, it's because that's exactly what it is, Robert. The company has gotten a huge advantage over other vehicle manufacturers in the United States by the amount of cost they put on the backs of their employees. All of the other organized car companies, and it's significant. It's 160,000 members belong to the other companies that we bargain with. They don't pay for their health care. There are some minimal co-pays, but they don't pay. The company carries the burden of health care. And it's an incredible benefit for our members. And the UAW has fought for 80 years to get that benefit in place because it's an important benefit. Our members that build vehicles in the UAW do not have to worry that their whole life is going to be upended and demolished because they get stuck with a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 medical bill. Mm-hmm. Most people can't afford that. They don't have that kind of money sitting in reserve to be able to utilize for health care. They just don't have it. And, it equates to if somebody has a family coverage on the premium care here at VW, it's not unusual for someone, they're going to spend about $5,000 a year to have that coverage before they even use it, just to have the benefit. And then, the out-of-pocket expenses go all the way to $6,400 before the insurance kicks in. We're auto workers, man. We're not making $200,000 a year here. We're making much less than that. And to put the burden on your employees to where they have to pay that kind of money to get decent health care is an atrocity. And it's not even good for the business. I mean, if I ran a business, I would want a healthy workforce. I would want healthy workforces come to work on a more regular basis. They don't come to work sick because they know they can go to the doctor and not have to worry about how they pay their bills the rest of the month. And it does cost some money. It's money the company can afford. Other companies afford it. Volkswagen is the biggest global supplier in the world. They're the most profitable. It's between them and Toyota all the time. And they make a lot more money than the companies we bargain with that have to provide it to a lot more people in the United States. Ford Motor Company has to provide that insurance to 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Volkswagen is a global powerhouse, way more profitable, 3 times as profitable as Ford, and we're asking them to provide it for 3,400 people. and they're fighting it. They haven't paid it before. They'd prefer to try and make profits over here in the United States at the workers' expense. They say they care, but they have all the power to take care of people, and they've chosen not to so far. So
words are wind, yo.
yes, yep.
All right. So this next question is kind of a doozy. Several questions in here, but I think he's getting to a singular point here. But
Gotcha.
The question is, why was this offer presented after the representatives from Germany came to help move the process forward? Why did the bargaining committee say they were very excited and felt very optimistic before this offer? Is the bargaining committee being misled by the company? The company stated in the last video message they would present one last final offer. Is this the company's final offer? Can we begin talking about an August deadline? That kind of goes back to deadline. But there was a lot of optimism when we found out that you guys sat down with the Works Council. And it appears, at least, that hasn't been fruitful. Can you give us some better insight into that?
Yeah. So first of all, I share in the rest of the bargaining committee's optimism and assessment of the meetings we had a couple weeks ago. And they were with the Works Council as well as somebody from Wolfsburg, one of their highest executives over there. They came to Chattanooga for meetings with us. Man, we met all day. We started very early in the morning, met till 10:30 at night. We had great conversations. We really did. It was an optimal opportunity for us to have direct access with really the decision makers. The plant operates on a budget. That budget is set by the regional level of management over here in the Americas, North America, South America, Central America. They operate on a budget, but at the end of the day, Wolfsburg approves those budgets. They fund those budgets. So to have an opportunity to interact with them, to share where we were coming from on our remaining proposals, the discussions were great. The corporate group seemed very understanding of what our issues were and why they were issues. They're pretty experienced, you could tell. The Works Council was extremely supportive. So there's been a lot of optimism that came out of that. And unfortunately, for 2 weeks after that, we didn't have any communications or meetings with the company. And I was pretty irritated by that, as well as the bargaining committee. And so we went back to Detroit. We said, we're coming down here, and if we're just sitting here and we're not going to bargain, then why are we down here? Call us when you're serious and you want to talk. So that's what generated the meeting in Detroit. They asked to come to Detroit and meet with us, two of their bargaining team, and they did. And rather than a continuum of what was discussed at the meeting with the corporate people, it was small-time, regressive bargaining proposals that were made. And that was unacceptable to me because it should be unacceptable to our members. Like I said, that meeting ended abruptly in Detroit. However, there were a few things that they did put on their latest proposal to us that we can build off of. There's legitimacy to their proposal to us on the right to strike over health and safety. That's an important aspect of the contract, and it's one of our remaining 20 issues that we need to address. There's some building blocks in a couple other categories that I think we can now sit down and find solutions that satisfy our members' demands. But there's still some big economic issues, as you pointed out early, healthcare being one of them, that we have to work through. So I will say this, although it's been 2 weeks, and I have been disappointed with the company's lack of action based after that meeting, it's really been par for the course. You know, one thing important for our members to understand, this has been a strategy of Volkswagen. It's a strategy that union-busting consultants teach companies to do, and the strategy is really set up to frustrate the membership, frustrate the bargaining committee, and get them to give up and settle for less. But I've had companies try utilizing this before, unfortunately. So it's a pain in the ass when you have to bargain this way. But as you pointed out, the last 3 agreements, we did pretty well with the strike. This strategy, same strategy, was implemented by Case New Holland. And it took 10 months on strike. We haven't gone on strike here at Volkswagen yet, but on strike to play that strategy out and eventually reach our bargaining goals economically, which we were able to do at Case New Holland. So why they've chosen to do this, I don't know. I can't get in their heads in that manner on, for a company that makes as much money as they do, not take care of their own employees when they're given the opportunity. But, at the end of the day, we're going to insist on it. The membership's going to insist on it. And in my opinion, Volkswagen's playing with fire. I think there's a lot of members that have had it. We've had more people talking to us about strike action and escalating the negotiations than we've had prior. And, to me, they're taking these negotiations to a dangerous spot with their actions. But, people need to understand it's a strategy they're implementing to get them to settle for less. And, again, they can come to the meetings. I can lay it out. In these meetings, I predicted 3 weeks ago that the company was going to start mentioning a last, best, and final offer.
You did.
That's very ominous to the members, to somebody that's not used to bargaining, to hear something like that. But, even in that instance, Case New Holland gave us 6 last, best, and final offers. That they're still bound to bargain. But this is all a strategy.
Can I point something else out that you mentioned that I think it's important to mention? And I don't want to keep you too much longer because we're creeping up on your 8:30 meeting. But you also told us way back when that as frustration builds with this process, that some of that frustration was going to get turned back at our bargaining committee.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see that. But you told us that would happen before it started happening.
I did.
And I appreciate that because now that I see it, I recognize, Chuck knew that was coming.
Yeah. It's easy, right? It can't be the company. A lot of people. The company wouldn't do this to us. They're putting out videos and communications. They're trying to bargain a good agreement. They're not trying to do anything. The way bargaining works is we're trying our very best to present to them the issues they need to resolve, and they control whether they resolve them or not. So they're not victims in bargaining. They're not. There's no other person other than them that can sit down and find remedies and grant the proposals of the members. And I said it earlier. The bargaining committee has been awesome. They have been available. They are knowledgeable about the issues. They've done a great job. They have. Everything that's been done so far has been done very well. They're good agreements. I'm eager to get that in front of the company. But the issue with the bargaining not being done, it's not the bargainers, it's not the VLC, it's not the international staff, it's the company. And it's really the company. And I understand why people don't want to believe that it is the company, because, you would like to think that your employer values what you do, right? But it is what it is. But the company is the problem. And again, I can lay it out a million different ways where people understand it very well. But it's the company. And
it's very evident that the company may value what we do, but they don't value who we are one bit.
Absolutely. They don't. So, these are all things we will overcome. I'm very confident we're going to get an agreement that looks a lot closer to what our bargaining goals are than theirs. And people just need to stick with us. They just need to stick with us. Every single member out there plays a role, whether it's supporting or taking a step further initiative to communicate to the members, or to even take a step further and be on the bargaining committee. All we got to do is stick together. The power in numbers stuff is real. If everybody sticks together, we're going to be just fine in this contract negotiations. And we're towards the end. I've said this for 2 months now. We're in the final phase of the contract negotiations. End game. So it's going to get hotter out there. Rumors are going to expand. You're going to start hearing all kinds of crazy stuff. Because I've done this. Every negotiations is similar this way. And it usually heats up just before we settle. And that's the stage we're in. And the company's doing everything they can to avoid addressing what the members' needs are. And we're doing everything we can to persuade them to address those needs. And you stick with us and stick together, we're going to be okay.
All right. Well, that's a good note to end on. Chuck, if I don't have the opportunity to say it again, let me just say I really appreciate all the hard work that you've done for us. You're retiring. This is kind of your swan song.
Yeah.
And as a person trying to be a member of this, whatever this ends up being, it's phenomenal to me. I feel like I'm part of history. It's silly saying it, but thank you so much for all of your work. And thank you for being on this podcast and sharing this information with our people.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Robert. It means a lot to me. As you stated, I am retiring. I'm going to continue to lead the negotiations into my retirement, which is cool because it's something I want to do, something I'm not being paid additional to do. I spent a lot of time here over the 15 years in the early days when we tried to organize the place 2.5 years. And this is a great, great reward for me for all the years in the UAW to fortunately be around long enough to where I could see this plant get organized and be part of the bargaining team and be part of history. Like you said, this is part of history on showing the world that regardless of where our members live, be it the South, the East, the West, the North, that there's benefits to being in the union and sticking together and being organized and being part of the UAW is going to benefit people's lives forever. And so thank you for the kind words. I enjoy talking to you, even podcasting outside the podcast, and to the members, solidarity and stay strong. Thank you.
All right. This is Fireside 42. We're out.